I guess we are live right now.
Good evening. Yeah.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, and I welcome you all to the first ever live session. I am K. Ramyadharshini, member of Eduhub Community. Eduhub Community is an open platform for all students to empower each and everyone and also to learn together. And our community is open to work with other communities and people. Our community will not only keep you updated about the latest technology, but will also provide career pathway guidance to everyone. Our tagline is Let's Take You Forward. So, in order to stay updates about the latest information, do follow and stay updated with us. Okay, guys, session will start in a few minutes. Till then, subscribe our channel and check out the links in the description box and feel free to tell your friends to look into this community. As you all know that today our topic is competitive programming and data structure and algorithm. Competitive programming is a mind sport usually held over the internet or local network involving participants trying to program according to provider specifications. So our agenda of this session will like first expert will talk, then we will provide you some gift like Core Java and build database driven apps with SQL Server, C hash, Python course. Stay tuned to grab this free course. Next comes question and answer session. You all can type your question in the comment section and our speaker will be answer all of your questions. Then we'll provide a feedback link at last. Those who submit the form will get certificates from our community. Here time comes. Now I like to introduce our speaker Vaibhav Kumar for today's session. He is a postdoc student of KIIT University. He is a competitive coder and who is constantly good at problem solving. He has worked on two projects, coronary heart disease and prediction and exploratory data analysis on student dataset. The stage is all yours, Mr. Vaibhav Kumar, sir.
Okay. So as to introduce myself, so my good name is Vaibhav, and I am a computer science and engineering student from KIIT University, and I recently passed out in 2021. So I've got offers from various MNCs and I guess one product-based company, and I decided to join a product-based startup. Its name is Gainsight. So I think I'll be joining that late in August. So let's not get more into that. Let's start with the competitive programming aspect. So the first thing I would like to clear about the competitive programming journey is the prerequisites of competitive programming and how you should go about approaching them, right? So when I talk about the prerequisites, it means that that's when the journey begins, right? So prerequisites as small as programming languages. So you have to be familiar with at least one of the programming languages like C++, Java, or Python 3. I mean, you could be good in C, right? But it's preferably good to use C++, Java, or Python 3. I preferably use Python 3, and I'm not really interested into C++. But if you are starting, like if you are in first year or second year and you are new to programming languages, I would like to suggest you to go with C++. Also, once you are good in the basics of a programming language, I'm not telling you to master it at some level, but if you're good at the basics or at the intermediate level, then you can be going ahead and familiar with while loops or for loops, right? So basically the looping statements and how the increment, like the indexes are incremented, right? Postfix, prefix, increment indexes, like so on. Also, you have to be familiar with how recursion works, because you will be involved in a lot of problems in competitive programming, and even outside of competitive programming, when we talk about DSA, you will be involved in recursion. So you have to be familiar with how recursion works. Again, if you know the basics of recursion while you are doing or practicing competitive programming problems, then you will definitely learn more about it and in depth, right? And the main part I would like to emphasize is that we should never skip the understanding of how time and the space complexity of any algorithm works, right? So for example, you should be learn for example, you are learning any algorithm or a technique, and while learning that, you should focus on the why part, like why is the binary search algorithm taking log n time, and why the linear search is taking n time complexity. I mean, just by looking at the binary search algorithm, when first time I saw it, I could not figure out how it was taking a log n of time complexity, right? I was like, it should be n by 2 because we are accessing half of the array every time, but that's not the case. So even as simple as understanding the time complexity of binary search or linear search helps in the long run. I mean, you can skip it in the beginning. It's fine for 1 or 2 months or maybe a year, but in the long run it will affect. So basically, you have to be having a strong foundation in time and the space complexity. And this brings us to one of the whiteboard presentations, which I'll be presenting today, just to explain where the login part comes in the binary search. And there's a catch at the end as well. So right now I'm going to share my screen. I believe the screen is shared. So I'll head over to my whiteboard section. I hope that is visible. So we are talking about binary search, right? I'm just going to explain it in simple terms. So when we are talking about binary search, we have read it over the internet that it has a time complexity of big O of log n. Now, what is big O? Big O is basically the worst case, right? I'm talking about the worst case. We are not really going into depth, right? So we are just talking about the overview. And how is the log n part coming? Where is the log coming from? I mean, I'm dealing with the length of the array, right? Length of the array is n. So how is the log n part coming from? So for those who actually know binary search, so it's good. But for those who don't know, so basically we kind of traverse the array using 3 pointers, start and end. So it's kind of like this. So for example, if this is your array, then we have something like start at the beginning and end at the end, right? And then we compute something called mid, and we kind of compare the key, which is the element to be searched, with the mid element, and then we move on in the further process, right? Now, where does the login part comes from? The entire discussion ends up here, right? So let me just give you a very small derivation or a small example, right? And if you watch the example,
sir, your screen is not visible, so kindly please present.
Okay, give me a second. I guess I'll just stop the cam and then share the screen again. Is it visible now? Okay, I think it's visible now. So is it visible now? Like, can you tell me?
Yes, sir, visible. Yeah, you can continue.
That's good. I think I missed out on some few parts I explained above. So I'm talking about the binary search, right? I'll just explain it once again. So I'm talking about the binary search algorithm and how the log n time complexity comes into play, right? So we have big O of log n. And what is big O? So big O we generally denote it as the worst case time complexity, right? And where is the actually the log part coming from? I mean, at the end of the day, if we have an array of length n, so it should be somewhat revolving around n, right? And where is the log part coming from? So for those who don't really know binary search, I'll just explain it in a very simple manner. So binary search is applied on, notice what I'm saying, that binary search is applied on a sorted or a nearly sorted array. And nearly sorted array is the keyword here. So many kind of fall for it that it is always applied on a sorted array, but that's not the case. It can be applied on a nearly sorted array as well. And you can definitely Google this, or you can search up your favorite browser, what does nearly sorted array means. So we kind of maintain 3 pointers in binary search. So the first pointer is basically at start, the second pointer is basically at the end of the array, and we kind of compute mid, right? We kind of compute mid based out of start and end. And what really is mid? So it kind of speaks for itself. Mid is nothing but the middle of whatever the start and end value is. So kind of you can compute this in a formula like start plus end by 2, right? That's the way you can represent it. So this is how the binary search kind of works, and we kind of compare the key with the middle element and then move to the left hand side of the array or the right hand side of the array, and ignoring the either one. So for those who are familiar with binary search, that's okay. I'll just go with the derivation first. So consider this is an array, right? Consider this is a simple array. I'm not just going to draw some lines. So consider this is a simple array. Now at step 0, when I'm doing nothing, right? At step 0, like at the naive step, what is the space or what is the length of the array? So at step 0, what is my length of the array? It's n, right? So it's basically n. This is nothing but n. Now at step 1, which means that I have computed my first mid. So at step 1, right? So at step 1, for example, this is my mid. What is the length of the array on either side? So the length of the array on either side is n by 2. So you can kind of see here that this is n by 2, and on the left hand side it's n by 2 as well. So I'm doing nothing, right? I'm not cheating in any of the steps. I'm just writing whatever I'm seeing, right? So at step 1 I have an n by 2 of length left on the either side. So what if I talk about the step 2, right? So at step 2, for example, if I go on the left hand side of the array or the right hand side. So I'm just going to take it as random. So for example, I went on the right hand side, I computed the mid again, right? So this is mid. And what is the length on either side now? So it's basically n by 2 by 2. So this is nothing but n by 4. So at step 2, we can see that the length on either side is n by 4. Now, notice one thing, one interesting fact, to be honest, that in the worst case in binary search, you will be actually left with one block. You will be actually left with one block when start will be equal to end, right? In the worst case, I'm talking about the worst case scenario. So what does that really one block mean? One block means that the length of the block is actually 1. So just imagine that at some imaginary step, right? So I'm at step 0, 1, 2. So at some step worst case. So up here my WC is the worst case scenario. So what is the length here? My length will be 1. Definitely, right? So we are left with one block of element. So far so good. But where is the login part coming, Vaibhav? Like you have been showing us this thing entirely, right? So let's just see. Let's just try to derive one common factor here. And what is that? Let's see. So at step 0, I can write n more formally as n by 2 to the power 0. I can write n by 2 more formally as n by 2 to the power 1. I can write n by 4 more formally as n by 2 to the power 2. So how do I represent the worst case scenario here? What will be it? Will it be n by 2 to the power 100? Will it be n by 2 to the power something, right? So let's just identify the pattern here. So you can see that at step 0, right, whatever the step I am at, it kind of gets added to the power of 2. So at step 0, we have 2 to the power 0. At step 1, we have 2 to the power 1. At step 2, we have 2 to the power 2. So when I'm at step worst case, what will it be? So it will be n by 2 to the power worst case. Now this is the length at the worst case scenario, but I know for a fact that the length at the worst case scenario is already 1, so I can kind of compute it here, right? So I'm doing nothing but simple plain maths here. So I'm just going to write n by 2 to the power worst case is actually 1. This is my final derivation equation, right? Derived equation, to be honest. So simplifying this further can lead us to equations like this. So n will be 2 to the power worst case, and this is where the logarithmic part comes in, right? So you have to apply log on both sides. So you can kind of write, just for understanding purpose, that applying log on both sides, I mean, you can write in short form, or you can even skip this part when you're explaining in an interview, right? So once you apply log on both the both the sides, right? So what will happen? This will be log base 2. This will be log base 2 n is equal to log base 2 2 to the power worst case, right? Now let's just simplify this further. We are going step by step. We are not hurrying, right? We are not in a hurry. So log base 2 n will be what? So 2 to the power worst case, right? So worst case, if you simplify this, worst case will come to the beginning, right? So this will be worst case multiplied by log base 2 and 2. Now I know from simple plain logarithmic maths that if I have something like this, so right, so if I have log a base a, then this is nothing but 1. So log 2 base 2 will be 1. So I got this equation, log base 2 n is equal to worst case into 1, which kind of implies that at the worst case scenario, my time complexity is log n. So that's log base 2 n. I'll just write it clearly. So that's going to be log base 2 n. And that's where the time complexity of binary search comes in or kicks in, right? So what was this worst case here? Why I'm saying that this is the time complexity? So you can see here that when I was mentioning steps here, right? When I was mentioning steps, so what are these steps actually representing? These are representing some moment of time. So at the 0th time index, you can kind of say it like that, at the first time index or the second time index. And finally, at some worst case time, I'm having what? Log base 2 n time complexity. And this is where the binary search time complexity kind of kicks in, right? So log n. And what is the space complexity? Well, we have not used any auxiliary space. So space complexity for binary search is basically big O of 1, right? Now, understanding the time complexity of a simple algorithm like binary search, so it was log n, helps you in understanding time complexities of various different algorithms, right? So binary search, recall that binary search is nothing but a divide and conquer algorithm. So I'm just writing DC, right? So divide and conquer algorithm. So it helps in understanding techniques and algorithms which kind of involves log n operations in it. And what are they? Maybe it can be n square log n, maybe it can be n log n, and I can heapify operations, right? So min heap and max heap operations, so that's log n, right? N log n can be thought of as a quick sort algorithm or merge sort algorithm, and I cannot remember as of now for n squared log n. So even just by understanding the time complexity of binary search will help you understanding the time complexity of major algorithms, right? So this kind of forms your base, and this is something which I mentioned earlier as well, that you have to be stronger at your foundation, right? So even if you are doing any recursive problem, right? Even if you are doing a simple recursive problem like Fibonacci series, right? So you can kind of compute that in a recursive manner, I guess, or even the factorial. So try to dry run the code. This is like the least advice anyone will give you. So you have to dry run your code quite often. So dry run your code quite often, right? And I'm not telling you to dry run your code with an input of length 100, right? Or an array of length 50. Just take an array of length maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's 5. N is 5 here. And try to dry run the code. Try to understand what's happening. Try to understand the space complexity. And that's going to help you in the long run. But if you skip all of these, that's fine. That's fine. Completely fine. This will help you in like 1, 2, or maybe 10 months, but in the long run, it will affect. When you learn about complex algorithms, you will be struggling to determine that how it's having a time complexity of this much or that much, right? So now that being said, I want to focus more on the part where, apart from the time and the space complexity aspect, the platforms from where you can practice, right? So the platforms can really depend on your choice. So I have a good friend of mine, his name is Anand, and I asked him one day that from where, like from which platform I should start. So he suggested me Code Forces. I mean, he could have said Code Chef as well, right? It doesn't really matter. You have to just pick a platform and try to master that platform, or try to practice, stick to that platform, and practice more and more questions. So there are various platforms. I don't really know all of them. So there are Hacker Earth, Hacker Rank, Code Forces, Code Chef. There are many of them. So I prefer Code Forces for some valid reason. So I'll try to show it that way, right? So I'll just share the screen again, and I'll tell you a step-by-step guide on how to go to Code Forces and how to kind of go about solving problems from there, and some tips as well. So I'll just share the screen here, and I think that's good. I think the screen is not yet visible right now, so I'll just can you suggest me if the screen is visible now? Yeah, we have many questions kicking in. Should we have a good understanding of DSA before moving to CP? I mean, okay, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. That's not a big issue. I'll get to that. Is the moderator here? Like, is the screen visible? Yeah, I think the screen is visible. I'm glad to know that. So look, you just need to, I'll just close this so that you know I'm starting from the beginning, right? So look, I'm just going to go to the Code Forces official website. So I'll just type codeforces.com, nothing else. Official website is opened, right? Once the official website is opened, as a beginner, I was really confused as to where to go about and start practicing the questions. I mean, this is a very confused overlay for a beginner, right? I mean, it might not be for you, but many out there struggle to find the questions, right? And where to start from them. So you just have to go to this section, right? You don't have to worry about this entire overlay. These are just basic blocks and regular info. So just go to the problem set, right? Just go to the problem set, and I believe this video will be available so you can come back and watch what I was telling. So just go to the problem set, and on the second last column, right? On the second last column, this is the last column. On the second last column, you can just hover over the icon. You can see this sort descending. So you have to click on that twice. So that's once, and clicking on that once more, so that's twice, will redirect to you to a page with the lowest rating possible. So that's 800, right? And I believe 3500 is the highest rating. So let's just focus here. So this is going to redirect you to the problems having the lowest rating, which is 800, right? So how to go about practicing the problems here? Now there are several problems here, right? So you can see there are several problems. Even there's this page section here, right? So you can go to page 2 and practice problems of level 800, right? So first of all, what you have to make up is that you have to set a daily target. You have to set a daily target of maybe 4, 3, or 5 problems. It completely depends upon you. You have to set a daily target of questions. So you have to stick to it. You have to be like, okay, if I choose 3 questions, then I will solve 3 questions daily. I mean, if you are really having a bad day, then always do 1 question and then go about doing whatever you feel like, right? But always do 1 question, at least 1 question, any point of a day. But when you are feeling good and you are at your best, you have to be sticking to your target value, which is 3 questions. I mean, I personally chose 11 questions at the beginning, and I continued it for 2 weeks. And then I saw that I was not able to do questions as fast as I was able to do earlier. So I kind of stick back to 3 questions, right? So that makes sense. Now, how to go about practicing questions? So for example, you can just click on any one of these questions. So the first question I'm just clicking on is watermelon, right? So you can kind of read the problem statement here, whatever the problem statement is written here. Now, before moving on further, so I would like to tell you one thing, that practicing DSA and practicing competitive programming is a little bit kind of interrelated, but what happens in DSA really is that you are actually given in DSA, right? Or maybe even the, I believe the interview problems, right? Or the basic DSA questions. So you are given straightforward that what you need to do. So you kind of know that, yes, I need to use this data structure or algorithm to get started, right? So in competitive programming, you can see that there is this big paragraph written here, right? And they don't mention that which algorithm you have to use. I mean, unless and until you just kind of see the tags here, right? You have to hide the tags as well. So up here you can see the tag is brute force or math, which means the algorithm is more towards math related and the brute force method, right? So you can kind of hide the tags here. I mean, you can, there will be, after you register or after you register at the website, there will be an option to hide the tags for unsolved problems. So once you click on a particular problem, you kind of read the paragraph, right? And then you have to figure out on your own. That's the beauty of competitive programming. You have to figure out on your own what data structure will be used if required and what algorithm will be used if required, right? It might be the case that you don't even require anything. It's just plain maths. And most of the times at beginner level, it's completely plain maths. So you kind of read the problem statement up here. Then we have this input format given here, right? So for example, the first input line contains integer w, the weight of the watermelon, and so on. And then the output format will also be mentioned. So you have the input here, you have the output as well, and then you just need to code out the solution, right? So one example test case is also given that if the number is 8, we have to output yes, right? So where do I submit the questions, right? So you can submit the questions in this section, right? So you can just go to the submit section, and then, I mean, it's written here that you're not allowed to view the requested page because I'm not logged in. So when you log in, so there will be an option on the right hand side, bottom right hand side, where you can select the programming language of your choice, and you can just copy paste the code there and then submit it, right? Now, how to know that you have to be moving from the 800 rating questions to 900, right? How to move one rating above, right? Or maybe like you are practicing questions from 900, when to know that you have to move to 1000, right? So first of all, never compare your profile, right? Never compare your Codeforces profile with someone else's. For example, you have an experience of doing competitive programming for 2 months, and by mistake you open up someone else's profile who has been doing competitive programming for 10 years, and then you kind of will get demotivated just by seeing their rating or how good they are. But also notice the fact that they have been practicing it since 10 years and you are just a newbie, right? You are been practicing since two months. So the main thing you really need to do is compare yourself with what you were the week before or a month before, right? So that's going to really mark your progress. That's going to help you in checking where you actually land, right? What is your progress, right? Or what is your daily progress, and so on. Now, notice that, for example, I set a daily target value of 3 questions per day, right? So for example, I solve the first 3 questions, right? There are going to be days when I'm going to be able to solve the 3 questions quite easily, right? But unfortunately, there are going to be quite a lot of days when you are not going to be able to solve 3 questions. So you have to take hints or maybe the editorial, or you have to look at the solutions of all the 3 questions on that particular day. And believe me, this has happened to me quite a lot of times. So believe me that your brain is going to trick you into thinking that you're pretty bad at problem solving and you're good for nothing. So that's what the brain is going to trick you into thinking. But on that particular day, you have to move on, and there will be 2 key takeaways from that particular day, and that's going to happen quite a lot. So the first key takeaway is that you learned 3 different techniques to solve 3 different problems, right? Because you are not able to solve those 3 problems and you kind of learned new algorithm or new technique, right? So the first takeaway is that you learned 3 different techniques to solve a problem. The second takeaway would be quite simple. That is the art of not giving up, right? You don't never give up, right? So the art of not giving up and actually showing up the next day despite having a bad day, right? So you kind of so for example, today I'm practicing 3 questions. I was not able to do the 3 questions, but I show up tomorrow as well. So Sunday as well, right? Tomorrow is Sunday, so I show up Sunday as well. Why do I showed up? Because I want to be consistent, right? I want to be consistent, and I don't really need to be afraid of the failures, right? So that was kind of a small failure. I was not able to do the 3 questions. You don't have to be set back by those 3 questions. You must have a growth mindset. So if you don't have a growth mindset, it's going to affect you in the long run when it comes to something like competitive programming or anything you are pursuing, right? So how to know that you have to move from 800 to 900? The simple trick is that, for example, I solved a lot of problems in 800, right? So for example, I solved around 50 problems, or I solved around 40 problems from 800, right? So at a point of time, you will feel confident enough to solve the problems rated 800. That's the point of time you should switch to 900. So you should kind of try to encounter problems or solve problems which are a little tougher, which are a little uncomfortable, right? So it's out of your comfort zone, not really out of your comfort zone, but it's kind of an intermediate thing, right? You have to kind of get it. So once again, you will be at a point of time when you will be able to solve 900 questions easily. I mean, not 900 questions, but the 900 rated questions easily. And that's the point of time you have to figure out on your own. You will be moving to questions rated 1000, and so on. You will be increasing your rating. And believe me, at the beginning, you will be quite be able to solve 800, 900, 1000. But when it comes to 1400, 1500, that's where the real practice comes in, and you have to be consistent enough, right? So for example, if you have a very like a headache day, right? So I mean, we all experience such days, right? We have a hectic schedule, and we kind of cannot make time for something else, right? Even on that day, just make sure to take out 30 minutes of your time, right? Just take out 30 minutes of your time out of your entire day and solve at least one problem, which I mentioned earlier. So that will keep you consistent, right? So we all have been aware of this cryptocurrency thing, right? Investing in that will it will help us become millionaires by the end of 30s or 40s and so on, right? Whatever the case may be. So I believe that in learning something, right, the best investing is you can be consistent and nothing else. I mean, you can buy some courses and learn from them, but the best investing would be to be consistent and nothing else. Also note that when you're trying to solve the problems, right, and when you're not able to get the solutions, so the best way to figure out the answers is you can like kind of see up here, right? So it's 2,29,496. You can just click on that. So once I click on it, I think it won't really show me the questions. Yeah. So see, up here we have Python 3 submissions. We have accepted, and then you can kind of click on this, and you will just see the code here, right? So for example, you are not able to figure out the question, as in case when you are having a bad day, right? You don't want to solve problems. You're not able to figure out the questions and how to write the code. You can just click on that icon here, right? So whatever the count was there. So for example, if I click on the next round problem, I click up here, and then you can kind of see the codes here, right? So Python 3 code will be this much, and you can dry run the code and then definitely try to figure out the answer. That's how you should be learning. And I think that should pretty much wrap. I think I don't think that I'm missing anything. So let me see the questions here. So should we have a good understanding of DSA before moving to CP? Solving greater than practicing. I mean, okay, so there's this friend of mine I mentioned earlier. So his name is Anand. So even till now, when I ask him that how do I get good at problem solving, right? How do I actually solve the questions faster, right? So initially, when I was solving problems, I used to. So there are basically in a contest there are A, B, C, D, E, max E or F problems, and within that 2 hour span of time, I was able to solve only A, right, at the beginning. Then it was A and B, and then it became A, B, C, right? So that's how you progress. So I was wondering that how do I speed up the process? How do I actually? We have some messages here. Okay, so we have some questions coming, so I'll just answer that. That's not a big issue. I'll take my time answering that. How do we know if our algorithm is the optimized solution? Okay. So that's the thing, right? So even if I ask him today that, yesterday I was giving the 734 Division 3 contest. If I ask him today that how do I improve my logic, how do I speed up the process, how do I speed up the way I write the code, the only answer, I think I have asked this question for more than 50 times or 20, 25, 30 times. The only answer he gave me was to practice more and more questions. So the bottom line is that you have to be practicing a lot of questions to get a knack of what is going on. Even there's this special competitive programmer, his name is Ericto, I guess. He has made a video on how to get started with competitive programming, right, or competitive coding on Code Forces, whatever the website may be. The only points he mentioned was practice. I mean, at the end of the day, you can buy $1 million course from various organizations. I don't want to take the name, but I've not done any course, but you can take $1 million course from them. But at the end of the day, it's you who are going to figure out in a contest and not them, right? I mean, under the guidance of them, you can learn some few things, but when you kind of figure out things on your own, that's the best part of learning, instead of someone like spoon feeding to you, right? That's the thing. And let me just quickly go on to the questions here. So what are the problems you have to face during the interview in data structure and algorithms part? What level of questions they asked with the fresher during an interview? Okay, so what are the problems you have to face during the interview? The first problem, I think the first interview I gave, they asked me the basics like the features of Python, and I was not aware of it. So I kind of told them a rubbish answer like Python supports list.append operations. And after the interview, I came to know that I was a fool out there, right? So that's how you learn. So you have to be, this is a harsh truth, but you have to fail in an interview to pass in one, right? You have to be failing in an interview to pass in one. What this failing actually means that you collect more questions that can be probably asked in the next interview, right? So what are the problems you have to face during the interview? So I think for a service-based company, the problems are not that quite tough, right? Like the basic math algorithms should do. And what do I mean by the math algorithms? I don't really think that's math, but Fibonacci numbers, prime numbers, primality test, to be quite frank. And then we have various things like the factorial, right? So I think this will kind of cope up with the service-based companies. But if you're appearing for product-based companies, you have to be more familiar with a little bit of graph, right? I'm not telling that you have to be an expert at graph, but to be familiar with a little bit of graph, traversal algorithms like DFS and BFS, then the traversals of tree, right? So the post-order, pre-order, and I guess, what was it? Post-order, pre-order, and in-order traversal, right? So that's with the tree aspect, you have to be familiar with linked list, how to reverse a linked list. One of the favorite questions is why quick sort is preferred on an array and merge sort is preferred on a linked list. So this is how the questions go about, right? And even if I tell you all the questions, that will not be quite enough, right? So you have to be preparing on your own. No one is going to be spoon feeding you. You have to be preparing on your own. Go and sit in an interview, be fearless, be frank with the interviewer, and try to communicate as much as you can and give your best, right? So at the end of the day, figure out that if you gave your best, then it's okay. But if you did not, then it's something you have to look into. And try to fail more often so that you kind of get more questions in your bank, right? So for example, I practiced 20 questions for an interview, right? For DSA related, right? And then an interview, I got only 2 questions from what I practiced and 3 new questions. And I failed the interview because I was able to answer only 2 and 3 was unanswered, right? So I kind of take those 3 questions, upsolve them. One guy was asking upsolving greater than practice or something like that. So upsolve them. What does upsolving means? That once you failed at solving the question, maybe in a contest or an interview, take the question, try to give some time, maybe 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, or try to look up the solution. So that's the process of upsolving. You kind of learn new things. So take the questions, learn about them, and then you have 3 more questions added to your question bank. So now you know 23 questions. And the probability that out of those 23 questions, the 3 new questions can be asked in the next interview as well. So that's how the learning process goes about. And what level of questions they ask with a fresher during an interview. I mean, for a product-based company, they kind of ask, even if it's a fresher, they ask kind of an intermediate type of questions, right? But For the service-based companies, they are quite interested in your projects and your hobbies, right? And a little less about the DS and algo. If you mention machine learning in your resume, they will be more inclined towards that. They'll be more interested towards that. That's what happened with me in the case of TCS or Accenture and so on. How much DSA should be done for placements? How to be motivated? I mean, there is nothing called motivated, right? So for example, how much DSA should be done for placements? So it actually depends upon your preparation. So if you're starting now and your placement is within in the next month, right? So for example, I'm starting now and my placement is 23rd of August. So I would like to prepare only those questions which are most frequently asked, right? And also a little bit of the basics. So for example, some questions are like addition. If you're going for product-based companies, so addition of two linked lists, traversals of tree, what is the difference between binary tree, binary search tree, what is the difference between BFS and DFS, and then so on, the things continue, right? You can kind of search that up on Geeks for Geeks, or maybe a Google search will do fine. How to be motivated? And again, I'm not here motivated at all. I'm just being consistent at solving problems. I mean, I have just started this thing called 365 days of coding on LinkedIn. I mean, you can go over there and ask further queries as well. When I get free, I'll try to answer that. So I'm being consistent here. I'm not like I'm being motivated and then I solve 100 problems in a week, like in a straight, right? So for example, I pick 1 week, 7 days, I solve 10 problems on each day, 70 days, and then again I stop for 1 week. So that's not being consistent, right? You have to be consistent. You have to be solving at least one problem per day. And when you are at your best, when you have a lot of free time, stick to your targets. Solve 3 problems if you have a target of 3. Solve 4 if you have a target of 4. And again, while solving the problems, you feel like this is too much, or there's this thing called like you kind of get a headache in your you kind of get a headache while solving the questions because your mind is new to this thing, right? The competitive programming thing. Then you can kind of skip the 2 problems. So if you have a target of 4, you can do 2, but you have to be doing it daily. And that's the thing to be able to like come out successful in a long run, right? So that's the thing. You don't have to be really motivated. You just have to be consistent, right? Any good DSA lists for revision? CodeChef or Codeforces? Which one is more preferable for CP? Okay, so any good DSA list for revision, right? So I think when I was preparing DSA, right, so I was not really aware about this YouTube channels. Like there are different channels where you can practice from, right? There's this channel called Free Code Camp, right, where you can get a whole lot of resources apart from DSA as well, web development, and many things are there, data science, machine learning, so on. So you can kind of go over there and any good DSA list for revision. Yeah, you can kind of go there and practice DSA or learn DSA from that whole video. But again, at the end of the day, it all boils down to you practicing how much problems and how you are trying to practice it, right? I mean, even if I guarantee you that give me 500 rupees and then I'll just I'll just sell you my course, or I'll just try to make you understand DSA within 6 months or 5 months. But at the end of the day, I cannot spoon feed every concept to you. You have to be able to figure out on your own in an interview. I mean, in an interview, I won't be there to guide you, right? Unless you are cheating. So CodeChef or Codeforces, which one is more preferable for CP? I mean, both of the platforms are quite amazing. I have appeared for two or three contests on CodeChef. So you just have to be sticking to one platform, right? This is what I mentioned at the beginning. So you have to be just sticking to one platform and mastering questions from there, right? I mean, you can be practicing from Codeforces and giving contests on Codeforces and CodeChef both, or you can be practicing from CodeChef and giving contests on both, and the whole learning process goes about this. But just stick to one platform. That's better, right? So the next question is that how do we know whether our algorithm is the optimized solution? Is it better to learn DSA generally or with a language? Which language is better to start with DSA? Okay, how do we know whether our algorithm is optimized, is the optimized solution? Okay, so the naive approach to know that your algorithm is not optimized is by submitting in and getting a TLE, right? The TLE is nothing but the time limit exceeded. So you kind of know that, yes, my code is not optimized. But again, I mentioned in the whiteboard explanation as well, with the I guess the time complexity thing. Initially, I was not really interested in how binary search works, but I wanted to know how it really works. So I kind of went to Geeks for Geeks and maybe YouTube videos to understand how the derivation works, right? Where the login part comes in. So that's how you kind of understand the time complexity works. So when you're writing a piece of code, you have to be aware about what is the time complexity of a solution, right? And then with some practice, you will definitely get to know how to optimize it. And that's how the learning process will go about. And is it better to learn DSA generally or with language? I mean, I don't get the question. Which language is better to start with DSA? Yeah, this makes sense. So, which language is better to start with DSA? I mean, you can start with C++, right? If you're starting new, right? You don't know anything right now. So if you're starting new, you can start with C++. In C++, there's this library called STL, right? Standard Template Library. And I think there are many built-in functionalities, or you can say the methods available for STL, which you cannot master in a day or a month or two. So it's just a continuous learning process. So for example, you have mastered 50 things, and then you come across something which you have not yet mastered. So you Google search that, learn about it, and then you add it to your repository. So now you know 51 things, and so on the learning process will go about. But if you're starting with DSA, go with C++. But if you are quite brave enough, you can start with Python 3. Python kind of is a human readable language. What do I mean by that is that I kind of personally prefer Python 3 for the competitive programming. I mean, I face the time limit exceeded kind of thing quite often, but I kind of manage it with some optimized algorithms. So why I'm telling Python 3 is that because it's human readable, the syntax is whatever your pseudocode is. So for example, you are kind of asking your friend, if you're saying your friend that the pseudocode for this algorithm is this, and that's what you actually write in the Python code. But it's not the same case for C++ or Java, right? So, but generally, in the long run, C++ is going to help, whether it be CP or for the coding interviews, whatever the thing may be. So how do you keep yourself motivated if you're not able to solve at least one question in data structures and algorithms? Okay. Again, I don't have to be motivated, right? I mentioned that earlier. How do you keep yourself motivated? So, for example, but today itself, right? So today I have a target of 3 questions. So I woke up a little earlier today. I guess at around 9. That's earlier for me. I wake up at generally 11 o'clock, but I woke up at around 9 today. I solved one question. I took 1 hour, actually, to be quite frank. Then I solved another one, and then I went to sleep. Then I woke up and I came to the live, and I have one question pending for the day. So I have to do it, right? After the live, or maybe after completing the live after that, right? So that's how you should be doing. And how do you keep yourself if you're not able to solve at least one question? So if you're not able to solve one question, right, that's what I said, that if you're not even able to solve 3 questions, right, you have to be moving on. You have to be kind of moving on with the learning part, right? That's how you learn. That's the harsh truth. You have to be taking that to your chest, right? You have to be taking that defeat to your chest, because see, if you know 10 things and then you are not able to solve 3 things, so you kind of learn new things, right? So 3 new things will be added to your repository. So now you know 13 things, right? So that's how the learning process goes about. So you never have to be afraid of not able to do the problem. You have to be afraid of not stopping, right? So you never have to be stopping. You have to be continuing it. I mean, unless and until you have a fever or something like that, then you can definitely take rest for a day or 2. But that's the other case, right? So the other one is like, is it enough to practice the lead code problems for the preparation of technical rounds? Completely right. Is it enough to practice? Yes. The lead code, if you practice lead code, I mean, I personally have not practiced, but some of my friends or many of my friends who have practiced lead code are doing quite well out there, right? They have also cracked product-based companies. So if you do the lead code questions, right, like honestly, I don't know the pattern, how do you practice that, but if you are able to do the lead code questions, that will be quite enough for the technical round, and that's my guarantee, right?
Sir, excuse me. Please follow
Okay.
live. Please follow live chat questions, sir.
Okay, the live channel questions. Okay, no worries. Let me just start from somewhere in the middle. Okay, how do we know for algorithms the optimization? I got this. If we get material, we should refer. I have not done DSA. What should be my path for CP? Perfect. So if you have not done DSA, I'll just go over them quickly, and I'll just ignore the ones which are already asked. So I have not done DSA. What should be my path for CP? So see, if you are doing DSA, then it's completely fine. But what if like you are doing starting with CP, right? You don't have to be worried about DSA. So initially in CP, for example, you don't know any data structure or algorithm, right? You don't know any data structure or algorithm. So in CP, you kind of are solving questions, and you come across a question where a data structure or a new data structure or a new algorithm has been implemented, but you don't know about it. So you kind of figure out the question and you are not able to do it. So what you do is try to read the editorial. It's going to be available on the right, bottom right thing. So you read the editorial, read the solution, and then in the solution you see, oh, okay, so DFS is written, which means depth first search will be applied. But depth first search is something which I don't know. You simply go to Google or your favorite browser of your choice, type in how DFS works, source code in C++, Java, or Python, and then learn. So this is also going to be a learning process. But if you're just simply learning DSA, then you can simply go ahead with that. So learning CP, you don't have to be really master at DSA, right? You will be learning that on the way. That's what my friend said. And this is it for it. And material we should refer. I mean, there are various materials out there. Okay, so I'll just go back, back to this question. So there are various materials out there on YouTube, right? I mean, we are underrating this social media presence, right? If I'm not wrong. So on YouTube, you can just go and type in anything, right? So for example, for competitive programming purposes, you need this thing called number theory, right? You can just go to YouTube and type number theory playlist or number theory videos, and you will find videos or playlists of number theory. Then you can practice from there. You don't really need to be worried about the materials, right? Many people kind of wonder about where should I get the materials. I don't have materials, so I should start next week, I should start next month, I should start tomorrow, right? So that's not going to take you forward. You have to just go, you have to make the work done, right? You have to go to Google, read about blogs, and try to learn from there. So material is completely free over the internet. You just have to be kind of dedicated towards finding it, right? So if we get stuck in a question for 10 to 20 minutes, is it good for spending more time to see the solution? I mean, you have to be stuck in a questions for 30 minutes, I guess. That's what my friend said. His name is Anand, I guess. So he told me that you have to be able to figure out the question within 30 minutes. If you're not able to, maybe you can give 5 or 10 minutes more and then simply jump onto the editorial or the solutions or the hints, right? I mean, firstly jump onto the hints, then the editorial, then the solution. That should be the order and not the solution itself. So that's how the learning process will go about. I mean, you can spend max 45 minutes on one question and nothing more than that. So that's how the process is going to be. आप full day CP करते हो या development भी करते हो? I mean, I've not yet started my job right now, so मैं full day CP तो नहीं करता, but like no, so I don't do development right now. I'm into CP right now. Sometimes I try to learn about things away from CP, right? So I kind of learn about affiliate marketing, how it works. I mean, I'm not really stuck into one thing, right? I'm not a CP kind of guy that who is very good at CP and an excellent guy at CP. I mean, I'm not that kind of person. I kind of split some time away. I can even spend some time on social media as of now, but when the job gets started, it will be quite hard to manage those things. So I'll be more focusing on my job and CP, right? So right now I'm focusing on various aspects of, I'm exploring kind of different things. So CP is one of them as well. So what we have to learn before going to the interview round? I mean, this question is very good. So what we have to learn before going to the interview round? I mean, you don't have to be learning Hanuman Chalisa, right? You have to be learning DSA. You have to be good with DSA or maybe an intermediate at DSA, so that you are quite you are quite able to answer the basic questions or maybe the intermediate questions. So I don't think that this question will really make sense, but you can do the lead code questions, or you can go in on Google or even Geeks for Geeks, and for example, you are seeing that you are appearing for Amazon, or if you are appearing for Cisco or TCS or Accenture, whatever the case may be, you just go to the internet and type top 10 or top 50 coding questions asked in this company, and then try to learn from there, and then try to learn from additional materials. Geeks for Geeks, many are available out there. So how to balance development or competitive coding or college stuff. So it's all about being consistent, right? So if you have a lot of work scheduled for the day, apart from CP, definitely, right? So you have a lot of work scheduled for the day, or you're having a really bad day, you're not in a mood to solve questions. Again, I mentioned, and I think at the beginning, that you have to just take out 30 minutes of your time out of your entire day, even 25 minutes, and solve one question, and that will be it for that day. Okay, for that day, that will be it. Solve only one question. And how do you get those 30 minutes out of your very busy day, right? So you can kind of stop scrolling over those Instagram reels, right? Or you can save your favorite Netflix series for later, and then so on. You have to make some time out of your schedule, right? And minimum time is 30 minutes, right? So that's the case. How to know which algorithm to use for a particular problem? Again, this is something which I struggle till date with some advanced algorithms, like when to use dynamic programming, when to use such stuffs, right? So this is something which will come by practice, and this is also what my friend says, that practice, practice, practice. You have to be practicing. You cannot escape from practice. I mean, at the end of the day, if someone comes in and tells you that if you take the magic pill, you will be able to know all the algorithms, but even if you know algorithms and not implemented any one of them, you won't be able to do it in a real scenario, in a contest or an interview, right? So for example, a month ago I learned about DFS, which is depth first search. So I was pretty confident that yes, I know depth first search and I'm a very smart guy. But in when I was solving the questions, like I have a daily target of 3 questions. So when I was solving the questions, I was not able to figure out that DFS was to be applied, right? And then when I went to the editorial, I saw that this was a plain DFS problem. I mean, in the question, they won't really say that you have to apply DFS. They will be given in a story format. But I was shocked that even I knew the algorithm, but I was not able to apply it. Why? Because I have to figure out from the question itself that which algorithm has to be applied, and this comes by practice. So whenever I kind of see some questions involving two things connected or various nodes are given, I kind of know that graph algorithm will be used, not necessarily DFS. Then I try to figure out BFS or DFS will be used. And this, how can this be figured out? By practicing more and more problems. That's how you learn. So how much maths is required for computer-oriented programming for good placements? What interviewers actually check in a person while conducting interviews? So the first thing, the first part, how much maths is required for computer-oriented programming for good placements? So for good placements, the maths will be like plain maths, right? Ranging from GCD of a number to the LCM, right? It can be Fibonacci number or maybe the square root of a number, as simple as that. As simple as finding the area, I mean the volume of a cube or the area of a cube. It can be as simple as that. And it can get harder till Fibonacci numbers or finding whether a number is prime number or not, right? So that's the plain maths required for good placements, right? I mean, that's what I would suggest. And what interviewers actually check in a person while conducting interviews? The first thing the interviewer kind of checks, I mean, you must have read this somewhere over the internet. I have also read that it's the first 10 minutes when the interviewer decides that you will be selected or not. And believe me, that's actually at some point true, right? I mean, I believe in 60% or 70% of the cases that's true, and the 30% it kind of it matters on the interviewers, right? So you have to be very fluent with your English, right? So even if you're not fluent with your English and you are able to explain the problem they have asked, then that will also count, right? So what I really mean by this is having a good communication. And I don't necessarily mean that you should be fluent in English, right? I mean, you can have a weaker English like me, right? So you don't have to be really fluent in English, but you have to be able to convey what you are thinking to the interviewer, right? If you're not able to do that, if there's a miscommunication on that part, then that's a big problem. You have to be able to say that, right? So if I was speaking in a broken English and I wanted to say that how linear search works, so I would be like, we take 2 pointers and then, I mean, we don't take 2 pointers, but I take 1 pointer and then I traverse the array and the entire array is traversed and then we find the element. I mean, this was not really fluent English, but I kind of conveyed the point, right? What I'm thinking. So that's the main part. If you convey what you're thinking to the interviewer directly into his mind, he will be quite impressed despite your fluency in English, right? And also the confidence, right? They kind of throw harder problems just to see if you are terrified or not, right? So if they throw a harder problem, they don't expect it to be solved completely by you. They just want that how will be your approach, and if you are able to solve it, then that's a bingo, right? So they want to know your thought process, and what if you are put in a tougher situation, what is your reaction, right? So for example, an interviewer asks me that what is digit DP. So digit DP is an advanced concept and I don't know about it. So how would I approach that? So I honestly don't know about it. So I'll be like, okay, I believe digit DP is something related to dynamic programming, and I know the basics about the dynamic programming related to the 1D DP array and somewhat related to the 2D DP array, but I'm not aware of the 2D. I mean, I'm not aware of the digit DP concept. So I think I will look at that concept after the interview gets over, and that's how you have to handle the question, and not like I don't know the question, sir, I think this is a very good concept, sir, I am very bad. You don't have to do that. You have to just handle the question in a smart way. You have to be like, for example, if they ask merge sort and you know quick sort, or you just know bubble sort, you have to be like, I think merge sort is a good sorting algorithm with n log n time complexity, but I believe, sir, I am aware of the bubble sort algorithm and its implementation. So after the interview gets over, I'll definitely look into merge sort. And then you pause there, and the interviewer will ask you about bubble sort, because they want to ask you something definitely which you know, right? So that's how you should be handling the interview. So I'm in third year starting. What should I focus on, DSA versus CP versus projects? Okay, so definitely you have to manage your time, right? So start with CP. I mean, you are in third year starting, right? So you have, I guess, 1 year, 2 years of thing, right? So what you can do is like you can focus more on CP. I mean, you have to focus equally on both the aspects, CP and projects, right? I mean, you have to handle your time. I don't know about your schedule, right? So how can I personally suggest you? I mean, if my opinion goes wrong, and then you can kind of blame on me, right? That I did not suggested the right move. So it's something which you have to figure out on which aspect you have to give more time, and then you have to be going about it. So is CP necessary? Definitely not, but if you're good at DSA, then you can be fine with that. You can be doing lead code, anything else. But if you do CP, it's going to help you in various aspects of life, in making critical decisions, in like definitely as a whole problem solving aspect, right? Not only uh, writing the code, but outside of the code, right? Your brain kind of develops in that way. Your brain kind of develops in an efficient way, because in CP you have to think efficiently. So it kind of helps in different parameters. And if you are consistent in doing CP, I mean, I'm not telling that it's really necessary, but if you're consistent in doing CP or anything else, it kind of adds consistency to anything else you are pursuing. So for example, if you are pursuing drawing classes or art classes, so you kind of learn art every day. So that's something which you get from doing something consistently. So I'm not saying that it's necessary, but if you do it, it's going to add up to your personality or the way you think, right? आप इतने ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम्स कैसे सॉल्व कर लेते हो एक दिन में, दैट इज 10. आई मीन यू मस्ट हैव सीन दैट from the first few posts which I posted on LinkedIn. So I used to solve 10 or 11 problems, because back then I was like quite motivated to do the questions. But as soon as time passed by, when 1 week or 2 weeks passed by, I was a little demotivated, and it was like I have seen myself. I used to, so I'm just going to be sharing a small story. So I used to do gym, right? So I used to go to gym with my friend, and when I came back to home from the college, definitely I stopped going to gym, provided that there's a gym nearby my house, right? So that's something, because I thought that I lost my motivation. So despite losing the motivation, you have to be just consistent. I mean, if I had hit the gym for maybe 30 minutes per day, that would be quite enough. I mean, per day is going to add up to bigger results, right? We all know about that. So the same applies for learning things. So initially I was very motivated. I was like doing 10, 11, 12 problems, and maybe like 13 problems per day. And I think this continued for 2 weeks, until I realized that I will get demotivated quite quickly. So I kind of lowered the problems I do per day. So I kind of started with 5 problems, 6 problems, and then gradually reduced down to 3 problems. So I kind of do 3 problems per day. And when I'm not feeling good, I even do 1 or 2 problems. But I'm being consistent. So even if you fail, right, consistency is going to pay off at the end. And mark my words, this is going to be true, right? So even if you fail 100 times and you succeed one time, there's going to be that once time when you succeed in a contest, which is going to like boost your confidence in such a way that it's going to make you feel that consistency has paid off. So that's the thing. How much maths is required for computer? I think I have answered this. How do we know? Okay, let me just see. In third year, what should I focus on? DSA. Okay, I'm in third year starting. What should I focus on? DSA versus CP versus. I think I have answered this. I have zero knowledge of development, zero projects, but a basic knowledge of DSA and CP. Yes, get started with CP, right? I mean, if you get started with CP, you will learn DSA alongside, right? So that's the plus point. So get started with CP. Hello. Okay, hello. I'm in first year. What should be my strategy to master DSA? I mean, if you're in first year, you have the best opportunity to be getting started with CP, right? I mean, if you want to get started with DSA, then you can. But if you have missed the first initial part of the video where I mentioned that the prerequisites of I think CP, right? You have to be familiar with one programming language. And after that, you can just simply start with CP. I mean, if you, whatever your name is, Rishita, right? So if you are trying to do even 2 problems from first year till the end of fourth year, that will be just imagine that. Just imagine there are 300 days in a year. Just imagine. So that will be 600 into 2,400 problems we'll be able to solve. That's 2,400, and if I do a set of that, that will be around 1,000 different problems, and that's going to help you in a longer run. So that's going to be helping you in a bigger picture, right? So even as small as doing 2 problems per day, starting from the first year, is going to be helping you in the long run, right? So benefits of learning data structures. What are the principles or standards of algorithm analysis? What do interviewers expect from their applicants? I mean, the interviewers expect confidence and good problem solving ability. And if you're not able to prove them that you don't have good problem solving ability, you have to be, I mean, you don't have to be answering all the questions. So for example, if they ask 3 questions and you are able to give a solid answer to one of them, and the two questions you are not able to solve, but you kind of gave them the hint or the approach, that's quite enough for you to crack the interview. Because they don't expect, at big product-based companies, they don't expect you to solve each and every question. I mean, they kind of design the questions in such a way that there exists no answer to that. They just want to know how the candidate approaches in that situation, so that they know that the candidate is bound to pressure, right? So he's bound to taking pressure, and I think, yeah, that's it. Benefits of learning data structures. I mean, using the data structures, you can kind of pair up them with the algorithm part, and then you can kind of merge them and do problem solving, right? So data structures as simple as array, linked list, tree, graph will help you in the long run. क्या आपसे भी starting में question solve नहीं होते थे? Definitely. क्या आपसे, so I was also not able to solve questions. I think I have something in the private chat. Give me a second. So. Okay, so starting the questions solving. Yeah, definitely. I was not able to solve questions at the beginning. So what I used to do is I used to jump quickly to the solutions. I used to give 25 or 30 minutes, and then I used to jump to the solutions or the editorial, and then try to figure out the answer from there. And then I try to sort of the first, in the initial weeks, I used to solve 10 or 11 problems, and out of that 7 were done on my own and 3 were not, right? So for example, it was like a 30%, 70% ratio. I was not able to do the 30% or 40% questions. So why? Because I was getting started into it. And right now, what is the situation? It's the same situation as well, because this is a continuous learning process, right? I mean, at the end of the day, contest is something which is going to tell you that how much is your level of preparedness, right? So I was also not able to solve questions at the beginning, but slowly you will get a knack of it. So for example, I mean, you have heard this quote quite a lot of times over the internet, that the things which are tougher, like the things we are not able to solve today, will be easier tomorrow, right? So for example, a number is given, and then I have to find some answer related to that. So the answer can be a one-liner, but initially I used to check whether a number is even, then figure out the answer, check whether a number is odd, then figure out the answer. But as you practice more and more, you figure out that, okay, the answer is a one-liner. It's a one-line equation, maths equation, and then you are able to figure out the answer. So the more you practice, the more you are able to do the tougher problems gradually, right? Yes, sir. So Thank you. Why most of the companies don't prefer us to code in Python? I mean, I think the company's technical rounds is language agnostic, right? I mean, it's language agnostic to some extent because you can use Python because the company I will be joining, it's called Gainsight. It's a product-based startup, customer-based success company. So I myself gave the interview in Python. Although the company's description required me to have proficiency in Java, but in the interview I was frank enough and I told him it was an on-campus placement, to be honest. So I told him that I will be able to code in Python, and the interviewer allowed me. I don't think that uh, companies would restrict you to code in Python. But if they do, just have a backup language in case if they do this. So practice C++ or Java. I mean, if you have a knack of C++ or Java, that's what I told, that if you're starting this early, have a knack of C++ or Java, and Python will be just plain conversion of those codes. So you can kind of go in an interview. If the interview allows Python, you can just write it in Python, or else you have the best backup because you know C++ or Java, right? I'm not telling no both of them, but you know C++ or Java. So you can kind of switch to that language, right? Is focusing on one website more than enough to cover the basic questions of all types of algorithm completely? I mean, it's not like at the initial stages, right? Up till I think up till 1,800 rating or 1,900 rating, you should be able to cover most of the algorithms. But there are various algorithms which you won't be able to find. I believe there is this guy called, I don't remember his name, but he mentioned that there are various complex algorithms that you won't be really able to find on the internet quite easily, right? So you have to be reading it over various medium articles, right? So medium blogs or posts, you can see that, right? And you can kind of find it from scattered places. So it's kind of scattered, right? You have to pick from various resources and learn it, and then kind of like you have to jot down on your notepad, right? Definitely dry running your code on the notepad works wonder in the long run. That's something else. But you have to kind of learn different things from different places, different resources, right? Also, there will be some things which you will be able to figure out on your own, and if you're not, definitely I said you can go to Geeks for Geeks, Medium, Hacker Rank, YouTube, the best thing ever, and you can kind of learn about there, right? So initially, if you talk about small algorithms like quick sort, merge sort, DFS, BFS, you can easily find them. But some complex algorithms, like how to implement min heap in Python, right? And not by importing heap queue. So there's this, I think, module or library, whatever it's called. So import heap queue kind of helps us in applying the heap operations on Python, right? Python list or whatever the case may be. But what if I wanted to know the internal working of it? So you can kind of find that on Geeks for Geeks easily, right? But there are some or the few other algorithms which you might not be able to find. I mean, most of the cases you will be able to find, but if you're not able to find, you can kind of get it from various other resources, right? Like Medium, and I mentioned that earlier. Uh, which programming language should I start with, Java or C++? I mean, you should go with C++. I mean, you should go. You can go with Java, but you can go with C++. Any one of them. As I told at the beginning, you can go with C++, Java, or Python. I mean, I mentioned or, so it can be any one of them. It's your preference. You have to figure it out. It's like you don't know any of the aspects, so you kind of learn a little from there and a little from there, and then you find that okay, this is comfortable, so I stick to that. So it's like that. You have to be figuring it out on your own. But I would suggest C++. I'm interested in CP and don't want to do internship. Will I get a job, or it will be difficult to get a job without internship? So if you're interested in CP, definitely you have to be getting started with that. I believe you are the guy who is going to be starting in the third year and don't want to do internship. Will I get a job, or it will be difficult to get job without internship? I mean, I personally did not do any internship, to be honest, and I got a job as a software developer at Gainsight. But I would prefer you getting an internship because that kind of adds a value to your resume, and not only to your resume, to your personality development as well. I mean, I missed out on that part. So you have to be quite motivated or quite inclined towards getting an internship. If you're not able to get an internship, that's fine. You will be sitting for placements, and then you can kind of get a training for 2 or 3 months or 6 months in product-based companies as usual, and then basically you can go about accepting their PPO, which is nothing but the peer placement offer. So that's how the thing is going to be going about. Fine, sir. Thank you. And don't call me sir. I'm just a little kid here. So I think this is all for the questions. Any questions remaining? Mm,
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Are there any questions remaining? Then we can answer them. And you can kind of
I think
provide
that
the yeah. Can you tell me? You can kind of provide my LinkedIn ID in case anyone wants to ask any query about the CP aspect, right, or the DSA aspect. So I can help with that when I get free. So you can kind of provide that LinkedIn ID or the LinkedIn link, whatever the case may be.
yes, we are sharing in the chat box.
Okay, no problem. How much DSA is required for internships? Okay, so nice question, Ishita. So talking about the DSA aspect, right? So for internship, you have to be I mean, internships begin usually around third year, right? So you have to be quite familiar with the basics, as I mentioned. If you're if you're going for a service based companies, then the basics would do, but at an intermediate level would do for product based companies. For example, I mean, you can just simply Google it, right? So intermediate DSA questions like that, you can Google it, or on YouTube you can go about finding it. Also, there is this girl called Anshika Gupta, which kind of went viral over LinkedIn, I believe, because she got selected into Amazon. You can kind of go to her Instagram page, right? So remember this, you can kind of go to her Instagram page, and from there you can find she has this beautiful posts, small posts about top 20, top 10 questions asked in interviews related to these topics, and you can kind of learn from them, right? So that's how you should be learning. I mean, apart from that, yeah, you kind of get it, right? Yeah, you have written. So apart from that, again, you have to be learning from various other resources. So that's how the learning process is going to go about. I mean, you cannot be aware of all the questions and sitting in an interview. You will be aware about some questions, and you will be failing at an interview. You will gather more questions and then ace in the next interview, or fail again and then ace in the another. And this is how it's going to continue. And it's not going to be a one shot thing, right? Hi Vaibhav, I mean, that's my name, so hi Vaibhav. Is C sharp good to start with? I have no experience in C sharp, so you should be going over the internet. And so Coyote. So I have no experience in C sharp. I'm not even aware of the C sharp syntax. I don't want to lie here, or I don't want to be a master here that go start with C sharp instead of C++. I don't frankly know about it. So you can Google it and see various other reviews, or how people approach C sharp and what is its rating, or where does it stand among various programming languages. Then you can start with it. So अपने placement के लिए projects क्या बनाए थे? I mean, CS. So I made projects like the basic machine learning projects. I made the basic machine learning project, and I even and the projects were not deployed on the server, right? So they were not deployed using various services like Heroku, or Amazon Web Services, or Microsoft Azure, GCP, Google Cloud, whatever the thing is, GCP. And I was not aware of those platforms, right? So since you're starting this early, whatever the project you make, like it's a basic project. So for example, a basic calculator project, just try to deploy it over the server, right? Or deploy it over the web, so that you have a small link, or you can say a small hyperlink on your resume. So when the recruiter clicks on the link, he will be aware that yes, you have done something which is live over the internet, right? So you have a proof of your work, instead of just having a machine learning project like me, right? So I kind of got away with that. I don't know how, but I did two projects. Both of them were machine learning, and that's how the thing went about. Sir, which language is best for mobile app development? So I am not into mobile app development, so I think you should be on Gene. So I think you should be asking this question to. I mean, you can find anyone over LinkedIn who is into mobile app development, right? So you can find anyone over there, and then you can kind of ask them, right? It would be better to ask them instead of me, because I'm having no experience in that. So that's the case. uh, thanks, sir. Is it true that product-based companies ask tough DSA questions than service-based companies? I just heard it. uh, it's not like that. For example, I think if you are appearing for a service-based company, uh, the max tough question I have been asked in a service-based company was I think was the Fibonacci sequence, I believe. Yes, the Fibonacci sequence. I mean, the number was given and I had to print the Fibonacci sequence. So that kind of speaks for itself, right? I have given interviews for TCS, Accenture, Cognizant, Bidlasoft, and I got selected for all four of them. And for the product-based companies, I appeared for Amazon. I never got selected for that. But for the gain side, I got selected. And the max tough question I was asked on gain side was addition of two linked lists. So you can kind of make the difference here, right? That I'm being asked the addition of two linked lists in one product-based company, and in the four service-based companies I gave the interview for, the max tough question was a Fibonacci number. So you can kind of interrelate the difference, right? So it's up to you to decide how tough their questions are. I mean, it's not really that tough, but it's kind of tough. Yes. Coding into amazing session. I mean, thank you for joining. So spelling is wrong. I mean, it's not your issue. Okay, so I'm taking Python subject in class 12. Please say this for future. Oh my god. So if you're taking Python in class 12, then you should be an experienced developer, right? I mean, by the time you come at my age, if you're taking Python subject in class 12, then you can have various careers in it. So the first career that comes into my mind when you talk about Python, so Python in itself is not very useful apart from problem solving in competitive programming. But if you talk about like Python as in general, you can pair it up with Django or various other web development frameworks, so that you can use it in web development, right? Or you can use Python for data science, machine learning. There are various careers when you choose Python. So it's not like Python is a very slow language, so there's no future involving it, but there is a lot of future involving it. So you can kind of learn Django paired up with Python. That's good. Then you can go for Python for data analysis, data science, machine learning, deep learning. There's a lot of things to do. Even there is this thing called trading, right? So high frequency trading, Python is also used there. So you can kind of go for that. Please, what do you mean by taking Python in class 12? I mean, I think Gene, that guy means that by taking Python in class 12, I think he means that he's taking that as a side subject, right? I don't think that Python has been introduced in any curriculum, but might be taking that as a side subject. Give some tips on how to make a resume. Okay, so I think this can be done in a separate session because I'm kind of tired out right now. I have to do my problems as well. I'm left for one problem for this, so I'm really sorry. You can definitely. I'm really sorry for this. So you can definitely message me over LinkedIn, okay? And I'll try to answer your query, whatever the queries are remaining, and then I can kind of like figure out what to answer. So I'm really sorry with that, Shita. So can we add like one Android development project and one development project? Yes, you can do. You can do one Android development project and one web development. That will do. That will do quite good. Ramya, is that it, or are there any questions remaining? I mean, Priya is saying that anyone in the backstage, please take over. So I think there must be someone.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Priya, you're audible.
Yeah, so it was a great session with you, and it went well. So I
Okay.
think it's time to wrap up the session.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for tuning in, and I hope we can meet any day, like anytime soon, with some any other session or topics to discuss. Would they be- So should I be leaving right now? Okay, Sahitya joined live.
Yeah, thanks, sir, for joining our session, and thanks every participant. Participant, if you want to get a certificate from us, then please fill up the Google Form link. And thanks for joining the session. And we will wrap up the session now, sir. Is it okay?
Okay, no problem, no problem. Can I sign the Google?
Yeah,
Can I
it's
fill the Google Doc? Like I want a free certificate too, so that's why.
yeah, sir.
Okay, I'll fill it.
Yeah, it's a great interactive session. Yes, too much
No worries.
questions.
Really, it
No
was
worries.
very great and interactive session with you.
Okay, no worries. You can have me anytime soon if you have any topics to discuss, any algorithms, anything related. So
Yes, sir, sure.
Yes, sure.
So, okay,
Sure.
thank you,
okay,
guys.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.